Hello, this is Miss C from the Capital District. I am here to work with you on the Wolf Elective Adventure Collections and Hobbies. To follow this adventure box, you must complete the following requirements. 1. Begin a collection of 10 items that all have something in common. Label and title your collection. Show your collection at a den meeting. Complete one of the following and tell your den what you've learned. Visit a show or museum that displays the different collections or models. Watch a webcast or other media presentation about collecting or model building. Complete one of the following. Create an autograph book and get 10 autographs, or find someone who's famous and get them to sign a letter.
First off, in starting a collection, there's several scouting achievements related to collecting. So how do you start a collection? Here are some tips to get you started. Decide what interests you. This might seem obvious, but sometimes it's the hardest step. You might be drawn to items which are frequently collected, such as stamps, coins, or trading cards. I'll show you a few of those things later in this video that I've collected. On the other hand, some things may not interest you that interest other people. Look around your room. Is there something that you have little of that you want more of and you might be able to easily obtain it? Maybe you can find some more. Your collection doesn't have to be all the same type of object. It could be different kinds of objects which share a common theme, such as a group of items related to your favorite sports team or movie. 2. Decide to collect things which aren't expensive or difficult to find. Sure, I'd like to collect fine jewels and lots of money perhaps, but that doesn't seem really practical. It doesn't mean you have to choose something which you can make a collection of easily, but it should be something which you can very reasonably add to. 3. Check with your parents. You might want to make sure that they're willing to provide you the space to keep your collection. And there will be other considerations about how smart you are and what you want to collect. Maybe it might not be safe. Here is a collection I'm about ready to show you that is something I treasure very much. This would be something unique that I considered collecting, but really I inherited it. This is a nice display I have of my parents' war medals and some of the memorabilia that they had on their uniforms when they were in the military. I have stored this in boxes with cotton wrapped fabric to keep them nice from being destroyed and out of the weather and the elements, and put them someplace safe so that I know they won't get lost or damaged. My mother was in the Army and my father was in the Navy in World War II. So these are very prized to me, and these are my father's war medals from World War II and the Korean War, and some of the insignias that he had on his uniform in the Navy. These are medals from the Korean War here, and the Asian Pacific campaigns in World War II. American campaigns. So from 1941 to 1945, he collected most of these medals. He was a pilot, and so I'm very proud. I love this collection of medals. These were from my mother's time in the Army. She was a seamstress in the Army in World War II, and these are some of the things that she earned as a sergeant in the Army before she retired. So collections might not always have to be something that you look for and keep, but they could be something that you've inherited or that your parents have given you, or maybe even your grandparents or other relatives, or even friends. But this is a very special, unique collection to me because it represents my family. I will be showing you in this adventure in a box. My favorite part of the box is fossil hunting and shell collecting, which is both a hobby and part of a collection. Wonderful thing about hobbies is that they can grow into things that you can collect as well and show to your friends and family. It can be challenging and fun, sometimes a little hard, but also very rewarding when you're able to put together a collection of things that you enjoy and that you like to show to other people. You can learn a lot about making collections of things while you're collecting them. During this wolf adventure of collections and hobbies, you will complete the following requirements. Begin a collection of 10 items that all have something in common. Label the items and title your collection. 2. Share your collection at a den meeting. 3. Complete one of the following and tell your den what you have learned. One of these is to visit a show or a museum that displays different collections or models. I'll show you a few of these things that I have collected on my own. Another part of 3 is watch a webcast or other media presentation about collecting or building models. There are many of these resources you can find online through the Boy Scouts or Scouting website of America. 4. Complete one of the following. Create an autograph book and get 10 autographs. Autographs are signatures of different people. Start with members of your den, getting their signature, and create a book of signatures. Another one is to, with your parents' or guardians' permission, pick a famous living person and write him or her a letter. In your letter, ask the person to send you an autographed photo of themselves. So that would be the 4th requirement, to create an autograph book, collect autographs, or with your parents' permission, write a famous living person and ask them to send you an autographed photo, which would be a signed photo of themselves. These are all really exciting things to do, and as I said, hobbies can turn into collections. So I'm showing you now one of my favorite hobbies, which turned into a collection, which is fossil hunting. I'll describe to you how I went about doing this, and we'll look at some of this collection together. So I started out doing fossil hunting and shell collecting, really going to the beach. I found myself very interested in things that were showing up in the sand and in the water as I was looking more closely. When I first started collecting shark's teeth, it was at a beach in Calvert County, Maryland called Brownie's Beach. I went there one day with a friend and sat down in the sand, and when I got up, I noticed there were little black specks looking like rocks clinging to my skin. And it turned out it was little tiny fossilized shark's teeth, perhaps like this. And I was very interested in that, and it turns out that our part of the country in Anne Arundel County and Calvert County, St. Mary's County, and Charles County, along the waterfront, there are many, many fossils that can be found if you know what you're looking for. So a fossil is something that used to be alive, or it could be a fossilized rock or mineral, but it would be something that lived many, many, many millions and millions of years ago. and in the process of its life, perhaps it died and its bones or teeth or other parts of its body were buried under sediment or soil after years and years and years of continuing layers covering it, or being in the ocean, perhaps down at the ocean bed with water flowing and currents and covered by sand. It turned into rock over millions of years, and the rock sediment would replace the actual item. Could be that, here's one for instance, this particular fossil used to be a shell, a scallop shell, so similar to this, which is something very common in Maryland. This is a really good specimen of shell though, because you don't normally find them in a whole piece, but this is a fossilized scallop shell. But this was buried deep, deep, deep in the ocean, and through different events that took place over the millennia, this probably was caught in a very hot fire at some point, or burning fire or someplace in the area, and it turned to stone from both the heat and being covered over with sediment for many millions of years. And when I found it, I thought it was a piece of metal. It almost looks like metal, but it's really a fossilized scallop shell. The sediment has gone inside of the shell and replaced it with what we call a rock now, basically a fossilized shell. Have many of those things. Here's a wonderful shark's teeth that I found down in Calvert County, Maryland on the beach. Very large. These are kind of prized when people find these. You would call this a megalodon tooth. But I have many different kinds of shark's teeth in my collection here, and this is one of my favorite things to teach at Scout Camp. We spend a lot of time going over the different kinds of shark teeth that you can find. Common in this area are, and these are all 20 to 30 million years old, maybe 10 million years old, but in this area of Maryland, the fossils are generally from the era called the Paleolithic area, Mesozoic area. I like to use this chart when I am teaching this class on hobbies and collections, which kind of goes through the different eras and evolutions of life on this planet, starting out with sea life when the planet was covered in oceans, and the first life is plant life. We go through this a fair amount in our hobbies and collections portion when I'm doing fossil hunting. But so most of the fossils that are, I guess, most abundant in this area are fossils that are found under the water. Plant life and sea life that are under the water. Sharks, different types of plants, which I can talk about in a little bit in more detail. But the reason that those things are so prevalent in this area is because we are along the water coast, and the cartilage from those fish and animals remains and was covered with silt and sand over the years as the weather and the climate changed back and forth from heat to ice age and heat to ice age again. Those things were covered with layers of dirt and silt and were preserved very well. So many of the fossils that I have found not only have been sea life, but also bones, whalebone and teeth. Here's a really cool example of a mammal tooth that I found down in the Potomac River in St. Mary's County. We think that it might be an old type of horse tooth. You can see the inside that looks like what maybe inside of a tooth might look like. And you can see it's very well worn and very well used, but this is probably more than 60 million years old. These are different bone fragments that have been fossilized. Could be another mammal. Certainly that looks like a bone. Could be a whale bone or a mammal bone. Also have some fossilized wood from different trees. Millions and millions of years old. But these are all different colors because wherever they end up being covered with the silt and the sand over the years, they take on the color of whatever it is that is covering them, essentially absorbing the minerals and turning into stone. Here's another interesting, you can really see this mammal bone inside perhaps the marrow and outside where it attached to another bone. It's a little hollow on one end as well. Here's another really interesting tooth. This we believe is an old horse tooth, two of them together. Whoops. And inside that would be the gum line where it is attached to the roof of the mouth. This very large fossil is very heavy. I found while fossil hunting, kayaking down in Florida many years ago. This is my heaviest fossil, but we believe it is a bone of a mammal, or it could be part of a backbone, a disc. These are fossilized barnacles, which you can see today. The bane of boat owners, scraping barnacles off of the bottom of their boat at the end of each boating season. But these are no longer found. These types of king barnacles are extinct, probably 35 to 40 million years old, but these barnacles were found in the river, in the Potomac River in St. Mary's County. Still white. They were found in very light colored sand. Here is some fossilized coral that I also found along the banks of the Potomac River in St. Mary's County. And you know, coral doesn't exist in this part of the world anymore. Around the United States, definitely not in the Chesapeake Bay or the Potomac. So that tells you how our climate has changed over the millennia. But these are fossilized pieces of coral that you could now find living coral in the warmer oceans around the world, like the Caribbean or down in Florida. Living coral beds are very common, but this is fossilized coral. Again, some more barnacles that are darker in color. I found these fossils down in Florida in a riverbed. I think that this is probably the most favorite one of my teeth, though. It is the largest shark's tooth that I have found. I will show you some great tools that I use to collect fossils. I generally keep a nice small bucket with me that I use when I go to the beach or the rivers, and will sift water in and out of the bucket just in big swaths down in the sand, but I made this tool. This is a tool from the kitchen, actually. Just a filter that you would use to filter out, let's say, lemon juice if you want to squeeze a lemon and not get the pits in it or the seeds, something like that. This is a little filter that comes from a kitchen store, grocery store. So I taped it to a stick along, I think that this is the handle of a mop or a broom, and that is what I use when I go along the beach or creeks or river areas. I will scoop up the sand and rinse it out with the water, the day or the river water, and see what's left. It's pretty quick to do that way. So I will sort through with my finger and see if there's anything in there that's interesting. If not, I just dump it right back where I found it. That's leave no trace. And go along the seashore that way, scooping, or if I see something that's a little further away from me than I can reach without getting wet, maybe it's not a day where I want to get wet, I can reach way out into the water with this tool and scoop it up. Have to be fast when you see something that you like and there's waves. Oftentimes it will just be a rock or a shell and put it right back, but sometimes I might come up with something like this, which is an amazing find. This is a very, very, very old piece of turtle shell I found in the Chesapeake Bay. And I will also take with me a magnifying glass so that I can see perhaps what I have a little bit better. So you can see a little better here. This is a turtle shell. There are definitely lots of turtles in the bay now, still in existence, terrapins, and this is an extinct turtle, however. Many, many millions of years old. This turtle shell is fossilized. But I thought that was very exciting. I've only found 2 pieces of turtle shell when I fossil hunted before. You can see this is a great tool to use to really look at the fine detail of the fossils that you find. This is that tooth I was showing you earlier. Also, I have a great treasure here, a crocodile tooth. I'll try to show you with my magnifying glass. You can see really great detail that you can't see with the naked eye. Crocodile tooth, probably 50 or 60 million years old, found down in St. Mary's County, where you know there's no crocodiles in southern Maryland now, but there were millions and millions and millions of years ago. I think that's a great find. Also some snow crab claws, which don't exist in this area anymore. Those are fossilized. You can find snow crabs in Florida now in warmer places, but many millions of years ago, these used to exist in parts of Maryland. I think my oldest fossil here is a bug fossil. I believe that this is an old butterfly, part of an old butterfly body, which was obviously very larger than some of the butterflies we have in this area now. But paleontologists have suggested this could be as much as 100 million years old. My oldest fossil. This is also a very old bug fossil. And both of these I found in St. Mary's County. This is a very old oyster shell found in my friend's backyard when we were digging up in Calvert County, digging a garden, and there turned out to be a lot of these very extinct, very old extinct oyster shells. There was probably about a 50-foot wide area where lots and lots of these are very fragile once they're exposed to air, so they broke easily once they were exposed to air. Also, a very, very common fossil that you'll find in this area are stingray or skate's teeth. These are what would basically be the roof of a mouth of a stingray or skate. They call it a dental plate, and it's easier to see with the magnifying glass here. So they would be, if you can touch the roof of your mouth with your tongue, you feel all the ridges there. That helps you grind up your food. That's what stingrays or skates also use to grind their food, and this is how they look when they're fossilized. Find a lot of these on the beach. Maybe they just look like stones, but it's a very common fossil to find in Calvert County. I have a lot of them. I like them. The larger they are, the more precious actually they are to find, because they break quite easily once they come out from underneath the sand and they're tumbled around in the water. I have some porpoise teeth, which are not very common to find in this area, but yes, there were dolphins and porpoise millions and millions and millions of years ago, and those teeth are always exciting to find. Here's another crocodile tooth. And I'm told that this is a whale tooth. I don't know. I take a lot of these fossils that I find down to the Calvert Marine Museum when I can, and have people that do this for a living take a look at them and tell me how old they might be and what they are if I'm not sure I can recognize them. This book I've used quite a bit, fossil book on fossils from the Audubon Society. Highly recommended that if you're interested in this as a hobby, that you do take some time to find materials to read about it. The Calvert Marine Museum also has a lot of materials online that you can find at their website, and take a look at the exhibits they have that show what many of the common fossils are in this area. Here is a collection of stingray mouth plates, kind of interesting. I do have a lot of fossils, and they're really fun and easy to find, so I would recommend that you go to your local park service area, or even call the Calvert Marine Museum and see what the best time and places are that are opened for you to go fossil hunting in your area. It doesn't cost anything generally to get into the parks or the beaches if they're open, and perhaps you can find somebody to help guide you from the park that will show you the best places to look for fossils once you get to the beach. There are many fossils up and down the East Coast. Another good place to go is North Carolina beaches, where fossils are quite common. Some of the Florida coasts, they do have a lot of sharks toothing going on down there, and a lot of active hobby societies for all ages, young and old. A lot of people collect fossils. Also, while I was looking for fossils, I have run across some interesting arrowheads and other Indian artifacts as well. So I haven't started collecting those, but I think I have a lot of fossils, and a lot to sort out still from my last time at the beach when I went. One thing I like to do when I'm teaching about fossil hunting is I will give each student one of these little collection tins, and we sort out different shark's teeth and put the ones that are alike in the little bins, and the ones that are we don't know what they are in other bins, and then see if we can find a teacher or somebody at a park that can tell us what they are. Lots of fun, but it's a good way to keep your collection together from getting damaged. If you're at the beach where you're fossil hunting, you might want to try to find something like this. This is from Michael's hobby shop and is used to collect beads and sort beads, but I find it very useful to use for keeping my fossils together or sorted by the type of fossil until I get home. And then when I'm home, I can often store them in jars like you've seen here. Here's another quick thing to show you. This is what's called a jeweler's glass, and I like to use this when I'm looking at my fossils because you can get right down very close and see a lot of detail that you can't see as easily with a magnifying glass. It's a little bit stronger magnification. And in our fossil hunting sort of sorting, I like to use these tiny little binoculars, not binoculars, but tiny little magnifying scopes. They come with a little light on it. Here you can see at the bottom. Very easy to just tuck that in your pocket. I got this on Amazon, and has a little light you can turn on and get right down on top of the fossils to see them. So that's fun. I think this cost me about $1.50 on Amazon. So there's some great tools, lots of other things that you can use around the house to collect fossils and put them in and sort them. But remember, important when you are on the beach or in the woods or on the rivers or streams or lakes and looking for fossils, make sure that you leave no trace of your coming and going. That's very important for the environment, that you should leave the habitat the way you found it. And make sure that if you're going to collect something like a piece of bone, wherever you are, that you are allowed to do so. Check with the people that own the property or the Park Service where you are. Many of these places are very used to people coming and collecting shark's teeth and fossils. But it's always good to make sure that you are abiding by the law wherever you are, and if it's personal property, that you have all the proper permissions you need to be on the property and to take collections. A fun thing that I also collect, which is kind of silly, but if you know me and have ever met me, you would know that I collect hats of all different kinds. And my favorite one that I wear in scouting is that cowboy hat on the top there, the black and white one. Keeps me cool and in the shade when I'm doing scouting events. Also have a fun collection here of, there's my little metal pig with a hat on, of antique cigar boxes. So those are some things that friends have given to me, and it interested me because they come in so many different shapes and sizes. So I started collecting those. This is a collection of Hot Wheels and Tonka trucks that, believe it or not, belonged to me since I was very young. I used to play with these things in my front yard when I was probably 4 or 5, up into maybe 12 years old. And I have kept them and stored them in a box, nicely wrapped and packed so that they wouldn't be damaged. And my son and his friends have played with these as well. It is important to know how to store your collection to keep them in good shape and preserved over time. So these are very old, almost as old as me. I'd say they're about 40 years old. It's especially important to know how to collect things that are delicate, like stamps or pressed flowers. In a minute I'll show you my leaf collection, which is very fun to do and something that anybody can do if you're able to go outside. You should also keep collecting if it's something you really enjoy. It's okay to start with a few items. If you continue to add over time, Might be good to set a goal. Perhaps I will add one new item a month. I stopped collecting these when I was probably about 13 years old. Also, it's good to network with other collectors because it might help you find more things. If I had found a group of children that enjoyed collecting these or didn't want them anymore, perhaps we could have traded. I could have found some others that I liked a lot. Or if I no longer wanted my collection, that I could give my collection to, and somebody else might be able to start a collection with a lot of things already. You can swap. There are local hobby clubs that are fairs that you can attend where you can find other collectors like yourself. That's kind of fun. Remember safety though, and never contact another individual about collections or hobbies without your parents' or guardians' permission or knowledge. Here is an example of a collection that's not mine, but is my son's. Many years ago, he started collecting Pokemon cards and Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and he has kept his Pokemon cards in a vinyl and plastic book to preserve them. Those are probably about 15 years old, and they still look like the day that he bought them or traded for them. Also, he keeps his Yu-Gi-Oh cards and deck and directions sorted by type. I'm not sure I understand that too much about Yu-Gi-Oh cards, but he has saved them and sorted them into plastic Ziploc bags and stored them in a box here at home. They pretty much look like the day that he bought them or they were traded for. Lots of fun. He has a lot of friends that were doing that for many years and did some stuff online with clubs to play games safely many years ago, and we still have these cards that look just like they're brand new. We've kept them dry and away from the elements outside, inside in a box, wrapped up tightly. So someday, perhaps he could pass this collection on to other friends or family. That was kind of fun. A lot of time spent collecting cards and trading them. It's a really great hobby. Another fun thing to collect are old books. We have a lot of old books, mostly on things like horseback riding and different kinds of field and kennel things related to foxhounds. Something that's very common. Fox hunting used to be common in southern Maryland, Virginia, not so much anymore, but we have a lot of old books about it. Over the years we've collected them. It's kind of interesting. Could be donated to a library, or other collectors might be interested in them at some point. These are great books. Books are very fun to collect, especially old ones, if you can find them. The hazards of recording videos outdoors. Lots of lawn mowing going on outside today, but I wanted to show you quickly a couple of fun things that I started collecting this summer. They are called garden whirligigs, and you can see one of them is going right now in the wind. Just great fun. They're handmade wooden whirligigs, and there's a metal one as well. Taking them down before a thunderstorm comes. Cute and fun for my garden, which is also a hobby. Here's another whirligig going in the wind. Gardening is also a hobby. Those are big okra plants that I'm getting ready to pick this afternoon. Here is the leaf collection I've been telling you about. We've taken a few leaves out of the garden, the green ones, I pressed for a day or two and organized them by shape, more or less. This is a really easy collection to do because it took me about 2 minutes to get all of those green leaves once I stepped out of the front door. And then another few minutes to organize them by type. I'm not sure how I would want to display them, but it's possible if you press them between cardboard or perhaps papers weighed down with plates or something like that until they're dry, you could mount them on a piece of fabric and put them in a frame. This large one is rhubarb from the garden. That's probably 2 or 3 weeks after drying and pressing. The other ones are a violet leaf, tulip tree, there's a rhododendron leaf, a dogwood leaf, morning glory. Really easy collection for anybody to put together and display. Particularly nice in the autumn when the leaves are changing color. They're much more interesting, I think, but you can look at all the different shades of green here too. And organizing by type and shape is also a lot of fun. So that's my little leaf collection. Very easy, no cost involved, and took very little time, but fun. 2 last hobbies that I'd like to tell you about. I'm very interested in astronomy, looking at the stars and the planets, and bird watching. Now you can't collect stars and planets, so they wouldn't be part of the collection, but they are a hobby that is very popular and many people do it. As well as bird watching in this area, I have a lot of books and guides to help me with identifying birds. Some really spectacular birds to watch in this area are bald eagles and osprey. And the great thing about these 2 hobbies is basically you can do it with the same 2 tools. A spotting scope, which I put on a tripod that I have my camera on sometimes, and binoculars. So those are easy to find in local stores. Even camera stores carry these things that are higher powered if you like. Spotting scopes, telescopes are very popular. You can find them easily on Amazon or other local stores. But these are 2 of my favorite hobbies and I enjoy them very much. They don't cost anything to do. Watching birds you can do in your backyard, in parks, on walks. There's birds all over the place outside, even visiting local zoos to see them. And all you have to do to look at the stars is look up in the sky on a clear night. This is a little template guide which tells me based on where I'm facing and what time of year it is, will identify the stars and the planets that I'm looking at. 2 great hobbies, very easy to do, with little or no supplies. And there's lots of resources available in the libraries and on websites related to astronomy and bird watching.
Great job finishing this wolf adventure in a box. Thank you for paying attention. I hope that you enjoyed watching and learned a lot about hobbies and collections and ways to display them and store them so that you can keep them for a long time. Very interesting adventure in a box. Have a great summer. Goodbye from Miss C.